You're standing in your kitchen right now, thinking you're ready. You got canned goods stacked in the pantry, bottles of water lined up on the sink, maybe even a first aid kit tucked away somewhere. You feel prepared. But here's the thing nobody's telling you. When the grid goes down, when supply chain collapse, when you're actually facing a scenario you've been quietly worried about for years, 90% of what you stockpile becomes useless weight. Not because you're stupid, not because you didn't try, but because the survival industry has been lying to you, selling you comfort instead of capability. And you believe them because everyone else did too. Drop prepared or unprepared in the comments right now, because what I'm about to reveal will determine which one you actually are, and the difference isn't what you think. Let me paint you a picture. It's 3 weeks after the event. Could be grid failure. Could be natural disaster. Could be economic collapse. Doesn't matter. You're in your home. No power. No running water. No resupply coming. You open your stockpile with confidence, ready to prove all those years of preparation meant something. And then reality hits. Your fancy freeze-dried meals require clean water you don't have. Your batteries are dead because you stored them wrong. Your first aid supplies can't treat the infection spreading up your leg. Your tools are breaking because you bought the cheap versions. And while you're standing there realizing you prepared for the disaster you imagined instead of the one that's actually happening, your neighbor, the guy you thought was crazy, the one who kept talking about things that sounded paranoid, he's thriving. Not because he spent more money. Not because he got lucky. Because he understood something you didn't. Survival is about having the most stuff. It's about having the right stuff. And the right stuff is almost never what they're selling you. Here's what makes this so dangerous. The preparedness industry is worth billions. And it stays worth billions by keeping you scared and uninformed. They want you buying buckets of wheat you'll never use, tactical gear that'll get you killed, and gadgets that stop working the moment you need them most. They profit from your anxiety while selling you a false sense of security. And by the time you figure out you've been scammed, it's too late to fix it. The store shelves are empty. The internet's down. You're stuck with expensive garbage while the people who knew better are rationing resources that'll keep them alive for months. This isn't theory. This is pattern. Every major disaster proves the same thing. The mainstream preppers fail first, and they fail hard because they prepare for a fantasy instead of reality. But here's your advantage. You're here, you're listening, and I'm about to give you the 10 items that separate the survivors from the corpses, the prepared from the pretenders, the people who make it through from the people who become cautionary tales. These aren't the items you'll find on every basic prepper list. These aren't the things your favorite survival channel is sponsored to promote. These are the items of people who've actually lived through collapse, who've actually gone weeks without resupply, who've actually had to make life or death decisions with limited resources. These are the things they wish they'd prioritized. And before you think this is just more fear-mongering, understand something. I don't profit from your panic. I'm not selling you anything. What I'm giving you is information that could mean the difference between your family eating or starving, between a treatable wound and a fatal infection, between maintaining your humanity and becoming something you don't recognize. Number 1. Water purification tablets with shelf life you actually understand. Most people hear water purification, and they think they've got it covered. They buy a filter, maybe some iodine tablets, call it done. Here's what they don't tell you. Standard water filters clog fast, require maintenance you won't be able to perform, and fail completely in freezing temperatures. Iodine tablets expire faster than you think, leave water tasting like poison, and don't kill cryptosporidium, which will destroy you from the inside out. What you actually need are chlorine dioxide tablets, specifically potable aqua or Catadin micropur, stored in a cool, dark place, rotated every 2 years, with enough quantity to purify 2 liters per person per day for 90 days minimum. That's not prepper paranoia. That's basic math. Human body needs 2 liters daily to function. You need additional for cooking, cleaning wounds, basic hygiene. Most disasters aren't overnight events. They're extended breakdowns. 3 months is realistic. Anything less and you're gambling. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part that makes these tablets worth their weight in gold. They're lightweight, compact, foolproof, work in any temperature, and they're force multipliers. You can trade them. You can help neighbors and build alliances. You can purify water sources everyone else is avoiding. Because they don't have the means. giving you access to resources others can't touch. Now, most people stop there. They think water purification. Check. Move on. Wrong. Dead wrong. Dangerously wrong. Because purified water means nothing if you can't store it, and storage is where 95% of people fail catastrophically. You can't just fill empty milk jugs and call it good. Plastic degrades, leaches chemicals, grows bacteria. You need food-grade containers, specifically HDPE plastic marked with number 2 recycling symbol, or stainless steel, if you can afford it. 5-gallon capacity minimum per container. Stored in a dark, cool location, away from concrete, which leaches chemicals through plastic over time. Sealed tight, rotated every 6 months. And here's the multiplier nobody talks about. Those same containers become your water transport system, your bathing system, your gray water recycling system, your trading commodity. 1 item, 5 uses. That's how you prepare smart. But water purification and storage mean absolutely nothing if you don't have the ability to create fire in any condition, which brings us to number 2. A ferro rod you actually know how to use, backed up by waterproof matches and 3 separate lighting methods. Here's where most people screw this up completely. They buy a lighter, maybe 2, think they're covered. Then they're in a real situation, hands shaking from cold, lighter fluids evaporated. Flint wool won't spark because it's wet, and they're staring at hypothermia while sitting next to enough fuel to keep them warm for days. Fire isn't optional. Fire is survival. Fire purifies water, cooks food, boils instruments for medical use, signals for rescue, maintains psychological stability, and keeps you alive when temperatures drop. Lose fire capability, and you've lost everything. So here's what you actually need. A ferro rod, which is a ferrocerium rod that creates sparks hot enough to ignite even damp tinder, lasts for thousands of strikes, works when wet, never runs out of fuel, and costs less than dinner. But, and this is critical, you need to practice with it now, not during the emergency. Scraping a ferro rod takes technique. You need the right angle, the right speed, the right pressure, and the right tinder material. Dryer lint, char cloth, petroleum jelly-soaked cotton balls, birch bark. Practice until you can get a fire going in under 2 minutes in the rain. Then back up your ferro rod with waterproof matches stored in a waterproof container, separated into multiple locations. So, if you lose one cache, you're not finished. Then add a third method, a Bic lighter wrapped in duct tape to protect the button, stored in a sealed bag. 3 methods, 3 locations, 0 excuses. And once you have fire, once you have water, you start thinking about food, which is where everyone makes the biggest, most expensive, most deadly mistake in preparedness. They stockpile rice, beans, freeze-dried meals, canned goods, and they think they're set. Pause here. We've covered water and fire. 2 game changers most people get catastrophically wrong. Most people quit right here, right before the real secrets. Comment, still here, if you're committed to finishing. Item number 3 is worth more than everything combined. Number 3, salt. Not table salt, not iodized salt. Pure, unadulterated sodium chloride. Stored in bulk, protected from moisture, rationed carefully, and treated like the strategic resource it actually is. Right now you're thinking I've lost my mind. Salt? That's the big secret? That's what I stayed for? Yes. And here's why you don't understand how critical this is. You're still thinking like someone who lives in a functioning society. Salt in modern life is cheap, abundant, invisible. Salt in collapse is currency, medicine, preservation, and life itself. Your body cannot function without sodium. Period. You lose it through sweat, through waste, through stress response. You don't replace it, you die. Not dramatically, not quickly, but your muscles stop working right. Your brain gets foggy. Your heart rhythm destabilizes, and eventually your organs shut down. Every human society that's ever existed has valued salt, because every human society that didn't died out. And beyond keeping you alive, salt preserves meat, vegetables, anything you manage to hunt, grow, or scavenge. No refrigeration needed. Pack food in salt, and it lasts months. That deer you shot? Salt it. Those fish you caught? Salt them. That garden harvest? Ferment it with salt, and you've got vitamin-rich food that lasts through winter. Then there's the medical applications nobody talks about. Saline solution for wound irrigation, gargling for infections, soaking for abscesses. Salt is a hospital in a packet. But here's where it gets even better, and this is a multiplier that makes salt invaluable. It's tradable. Post-collapse, people will give you anything for salt. Food, tools, information, labor. Salt doesn't expire, doesn't degrade, doesn't take much space relative to its value. Store 50 pounds of salt, and you got wealth, medicine, and survival capacity that'll outlast everyone who bought expensive freeze-dried meals they'll run through in 6 weeks. Buy it now. Morton's unionized in bulk. Costs nothing. Worth everything. Store in food-grade buckets with gamma seal lids. Add oxygen absorbers. Keep it dry. Rotate it never because salt is salt. Sodium chloride is sodium chloride. It doesn't go bad. It's been sitting the earth for millions of years. It'll last another million in your basement. Which brings us to item number 4. And this is where things get controversial, because what I'm about to say will anger doctors, anger pharmacists, anger everyone who profits from your dependence on the medical system. If you're ready for uncomfortable truth they hide, smash like now. Hit 10,000 likes, and I release the banned follow-up video. Number 4, fish antibiotics. Not kidding, not exaggerating. Fish antibiotics, specifically fish mox, amoxicillin, fish flex, cephalexin, and fish zole, metronidazole. Purchase now while it's legal. Stored properly in a cool, dark, dry location, and understood thoroughly before you ever need them. Here's the reality they don't want you to know. Fish antibiotics are chemically identical to human antibiotics. Same active ingredient. Same dosage, same manufacturing standards because they're made in the same facilities by the same companies. The only difference is the label and the price. A bottle of fish mox costs $20 and could save your life when hospitals are overrun, when pharmacies are empty, when that cut on your hand is turning red and streaking up your arm and you're 12 hours from sepsis. I'm not telling you to self-medicate during normal times. I'm not telling you to skip doctors when doctors are available. I'm telling you that in a real collapse scenario, in a true grid-down situation, antibiotics are the difference between a survivable infection and a death sentence, and fish antibiotics give you that option when nothing else will. Now, here's where understanding matters more than possession. You cannot just buy these and hope for the best. You need to research dosing, understand which antibiotic treats which infection, know the risks, recognize allergic reactions, understand that amoxicillin handles respiratory and skin infections, cephalexin handles wounds and urinary tract infections, metronidazole handles abdominal and dental infections. You need to print out dosing charts, store them with your supplies, study them now while you have time and internet access. And you need to understand shelf life because they will degrade. Most antibiotics last 2 to 3 years past expiration if stored correctly, but potency drops. Factor that in. Rotate your stock. This isn't medical advice. This is survival reality. Real talk. How many of you have seen a minor infection become a major emergency? Drop "happened to me" in comments. You're not alone. We're building community that understands preparedness isn't just gear, it's knowledge. Hit subscribe. Be here when it matters most. But antibiotics mean nothing if you can't treat the wound properly in the first place. Which brings us to number 5. Medical supplies nobody thinks about until it's too late. Everyone buys the basic first aid kit. Band-aids, gauze, tape, maybe some antiseptic. Useless. Completely useless for anything beyond a paper cut. What you actually need: quick clot or Celox gauze for severe bleeding, Israeli bandages for pressure wounds, chest seals for puncture injuries, tourniquets that aren't cheap garbage, irrigation syringes for wound cleaning, suture kits you practice with, dental emergency supplies, including temporary filling material and clove oil for pain, burn gel, super glue for wound closure, and a comprehensive medical reference book, physical copy, not digital, because your phone will be dead and YouTube won't load. This sounds extreme until you're dealing with an actual injury in an actual crisis. Then it sounds like the bare minimum. Let me tell you what happens in real disasters. People get hurt. A lot. Cuts from breaking glass. Burns from improvised cooking. Infections from contaminated water. Dental emergencies from stress and poor nutrition. Accidents from doing unfamiliar manual labor. In normal times, you drive to urgent care, get stitched up, get antibiotics, go home. In collapse, That cut becomes your death warrant if you can't treat it. I've talked to people who lived through extended crises, the Balkans in the 90s, Argentina's economic collapse, Venezuela now. They all say the same thing. Medical supplies become worth more than food because food can be grown, scavenged, rationed, but you can't improvise surgery. You can't negotiate with infection. You can't ration your way out of severed artery. Stock deep on medical. Go beyond the basics. Learn the skills now. Take a wilderness first aid course. Watch surgical tutorials. Practice suturing on chicken from a grocery store. Understand anatomy well enough to know what you're looking at when things go wrong. This is a knowledge gap that kills prepared people. They have supplies, but not the understanding. And understanding is what turns supplies into solutions. Coming up later, the item that isn't even a physical thing, but will save you more than everything else combined. Skip ahead, and you'll miss why context matters. Drop impatient in comments if you're tempted, but trust me, the foundation we're building leads somewhere crucial. Number 6, manual tools that don't require power, fuel, or replacement parts. Here's where modern preppers fail spectacularly. They stockpile power tools, generators, electric gadgets, battery-operated everything. Then the power goes out permanently. Fuel runs out, batteries die, and they're standing there with thousands of dollars of useless equipment while the guy with a handsaw, a manual drill, a good axe, and a set of wrenches is building, fixing, and creating. Manual tools are force multipliers because they never stop working. A quality hand saw cuts wood forever. A manual drill bores holes indefinitely. A Swedish splitting axe processes firewood without gasoline, without maintenance, without failure. You need a bow saw for cutting, a rip saw for planks, a coping saw for detail work. You need manual drills, hand-powered or brace and bit style. You need axes, not cheap hardware store garbage, but actual forged tools from companies like Gränsfors Bruks or Husqvarna. You need wrenches, sockets, screwdrivers, pliers, wire cutters, pry bars. You need shovels, not bent stamp steel, but solid forged digging tools. You need hand crank tools for everything. Grain mills for processing wheat and corn, food mills for preserving harvests, even manual washing systems for clothes. And here's the multiplier nobody considers. Manual tools are tradable, reparable, and they give you trade skills. Post-collapse, the guy who can fix things, build things, process materials, that guy doesn't starve. That guy becomes essential. That guy builds community value beyond just having supplies. You're not just preparing to survive. You're preparing to have worth in a restructured society, and manual tools give you that capacity. Buy them now while they're cheap. Quality costs more up front, but lasts generations. Store them properly. Keep them dry. Learn to sharpen them. Practice using them now before your life depends on it. Because swinging an axe looks easy until you've been doing it for 20 minutes, and your hands are blistering, and you've barely made progress because you don't know technique. Learn now. Fail now when failure is just embarrassing instead of fatal. But tools only matter if you have materials to work with, which brings us to number 7. Fasteners, adhesives, and repair supplies that seem boring until everything's falling apart and you can't fix it. Screws, nails, bolts, washers, nuts, zip ties, duct tape, gorilla tape, paracord, wire, solder, epoxy, superglue, silicone sealant, thread, needles, leather strips, rubber patches, hose clamps. This is a category people skip because it's not exciting. It doesn't trigger the survival fantasy. But I promise you, 3 months into collapse, when your water container cracks, when your shelter tarp tears, when your boot sole separates, when your tool handle breaks, these mundane supplies become priceless. You can't Amazon Prime a replacement. You can't drive to the hardware store. You either fix it with what you have, or you lose that capability permanently. Stock deep on fasteners. Buy variety packs of screws and nails in every size. Get heavy-duty zip ties, not cheap ones. Buy real duct tape, like Gorilla brand, because generic stuff fails immediately. Get quality paracord, minimum 550 paracord with 7 inner strands, 100 feet minimum. Get solder and a soldering iron you can heat with fire. Get epoxy that works on metal, plastic, wood, everything. Get needles for heavy canvas and leather. Get wax thread that won't rot. This isn't glamorous, but it's the difference between maintaining your equipment and watching it degrade into uselessness. And here's the psychological component nobody talks about. Repair capability maintains morale. Being able to fix things, to solve problems, to not feel helpless, that keeps you mentally stable when everything else is chaos. Learned helplessness kills people in survival situations as surely as lack of water. The ability to repair, to maintain, to create solutions. That's psychological armor against despair. Store repair supplies. Learn repair skills. Practice fixing things now. Break something on purpose. And figure out how to fix it with limited resources. That's the training that matters. Remember that salt we talked about earlier? Here's where it becomes critical again. You got water purification, fire starting, food preservation, medical supplies, tools, repair materials. You're 7 items deep, and you're more prepared than 99% of people. But there's 3 more items that separate the survivors from the truly resilient. And number 8 is going to surprise you because it's not a thing you store, it's a thing you know. Number 8, seed saving and gardening knowledge, backed by heirloom seeds stored properly, and the understanding that food security doesn't come from stockpiles, it comes from production capacity. Every prepper has a stockpile. Most will run out in 3 to 6 months. Then what? Then you need food production. And food production requires seeds, soil knowledge, season understanding, pest management, harvest timing, and preservation techniques. This isn't optional. This is an extra credit. This is the difference between temporary survival and actual long-term resilience. Here's what you need. Heirloom seeds, not hybrid, because heirloom seeds are open-pollinated, meaning you can save seeds from your harvest and replant next year. Hybrid seeds don't breed true. They're designed to force you to buy new seeds every season, which works great for seed companies and terribly for you when seed companies don't exist anymore. Buy from companies like Baker Creek, Seed Savers Exchange, or Southern Exposure. Get variety. Get vegetables that grow in your climate. Get calorie-dense crops like potatoes, squash, beans, corn. Store them properly in a cool, dry, dark location in sealed containers with silica gel packets. Seeds lose viability over time, but properly stored seeds last years, sometimes decades. And then, this is critical, you need to practice growing food now, not during the crisis. Gardening is a skill. It takes years to develop. You will fail. You will kill plants. You will learn through mistakes. Make those mistakes now when failure means you eat grocery store food instead of starving. Learn crop rotation, companion planting, soil amendment, composting, season extension, pest control without chemicals, seed-saving techniques. This knowledge is your insurance policy against long-term starvation. But here's the multiplier. Gardening makes you valuable to community. Post-collapse, the person who can teach food production becomes essential. You're not just feeding yourself. You're enabling others to feed themselves, and that builds alliances, creates trade opportunities, establishes your role in a reformed social structure. You become the person others need, and that's security you can't stockpile. If you understood that, you're smarter than 95% of preppers. But can you explain why heirloom seeds matter more than hybrid seeds? Comment your answer. I reply to the most accurate ones. Number 9 is going to make you uncomfortable, and I'm going to say it anyway. Defense capability that you're trained to use. I'm not going to specify exactly what this means because platforms have rules, and I'm not interested in getting this video removed, but you understand what I'm saying. In a true collapse scenario, rule of law degrades. Help isn't coming. Protection is your responsibility. Most people are good, but desperation makes good people do bad things, and bad people do worse things when consequences disappear. You need the ability to defend yourself, your family, your resources, and that requires tools and training. I don't care if you're philosophically opposed to this. I don't care if you think community and cooperation will solve everything. Hope for the best. Prepare for reality. Reality is that every major collapse in history has involved violence, looting, predation. The people who survived were the people who could defend what they had. That's not an opinion. That's a historical pattern. Get trained. Get legal tools appropriate for your jurisdiction. Practice until competence becomes instinct. Store supplies for those tools. Understand laws now because they still apply, but understand that laws change when enforcement disappears. This isn't fear-mongering. This is pattern recognition based on every disaster humanity has recorded. You can choose to ignore it, but you can't choose the consequences of ignoring it. And finally, number 10, the item that ties everything together, the thing you can't buy, can't stockpile, can't trade for: community and communication capability. Lone wolf preppers die. Period. You cannot survive extended collapse alone. You'll get sick, get injured, get overwhelmed, get picked off. Survival is a team sport, always has been, always will be. You need people you trust, people with complementary skills, people you built relationships with before the crisis, and you need ways to communicate when phones and internet are gone. Ham radio licenses, hand crank emergency radios, walkie-talkies with range, prearranged meeting points, signal systems. Build your network now. Find like-minded people in your area. Don't broadcast that you're prepared because that makes you a target, but quietly identify people with skills, people with values aligned with yours, people you trust in crisis. A mechanic, a nurse, a carpenter, a teacher, a farmer. Build those relationships through normal social interaction, through community involvement, through shared interests. Then when things go bad, you have a network instead of isolation. You have trade partners, skill sharing, mutual defense, psychological support, collaborative problem solving. This is the item that's not an item. The preparation that's not a purchase. This is social capital, and it's worth more than all the gear combined. Let me be brutally honest with you. No guarantees. Nothing I've told you eliminates risk. Nothing here makes you invincible. Collapse is chaos, and chaos kills prepared people too. But what you now have is better odds. Significantly better odds. You understand water purification beyond filters. You understand fire creation in adverse conditions. You understand salt as strategic resource. You understand antibiotics as life-saving backup. You understand medical supplies beyond Band-Aids. You understand manual tools as permanent capability. You understand repair supplies as force multipliers. You understand seed saving as long-term food security. You understand defense as necessary reality. You understand community as ultimate survival strategy. You now know more than 99% of people who call themselves prepared. That's your advantage. That's your edge. That's the difference between being a statistic and being a survivor. These 10 items aren't the most expensive items. They're not the most tactical items. They're not the items that make you feel like a badass operator. They're the items that actually work when everything else fails. And they're the items that people who survived real collapse wish they'd prioritized. You've got a choice now. You can watch this video, think it's interesting, do nothing, and hope you never need it. Or you can take action. Start small. Pick one item. Get it. Learn it. Master it. Then move to the next. You don't need to do everything at once. You just need to start. And you need to start now. Because the time prepares before you need it, not during the crisis when everyone else is panicking and shelves are empty. Honest question. What's the one item you're prioritizing this week? Comment below. I read every single one, and I'll tell you if you're on the right track or if you're missing something critical. Think I'm wrong about fish antibiotics? Think I'm overhyping salt? Good. Drop your alternative perspective. Best comment gets pinned and a full response, because I'm not here to create an echo chamber. I'm here to build a community that actually knows what they're doing. If this saved you from wasting money on useless gear, share it with one person who needs this information. Not for me, not for algorithm, for them. They'll thank you when it matters. Hit that subscribe button and smash the bell notification, because your survival advantage depends on continuous learning. And I release content that mainstream channels won't touch because they're sponsored by the same companies selling you garbage. Stay informed, stay capable, or stay a casualty. Your choice. One more thing. See that progress bar? We're not done yet. 99% leave before this. The 1% who stay get the hidden knowledge that changes everything. You got 10 items now. But there's an 11th item I didn't include in the list because it's not about having, it's about being. It's the mindset shift that determines whether you use these items effectively or just hoard them until they're useless. That mindset is anti-fragility, not just resilience, not just toughness, but the ability to gain from disorder, to become stronger through stress, to turn obstacles into advantages. Nassim Taleb wrote about this. Things that are fragile break under pressure. Things that are resilient resist pressure and stay the same. Things that are anti-fragile improve under pressure. Post-collapse, you don't want to just survive unchanged. You want to adapt to grow capabilities, to become more competent through adversity. That's the mental framework that makes the difference. Practice stress now. Practice discomfort now. Practice problem solving without resources now. Go camping without gear and figure it out. Fast for 24 hours and notice how your mind works differently. Break something and fix it with only what's in your junk drawer. Learn skills that frustrate you. Have conversations that challenge you. Build the mental resilience that turns crisis into opportunity instead of paralysis. Because when things go bad, everyone has gear. Not everyone has the psychological fortitude to use it effectively. The 10 items I gave you are tools. Anti-fragility is what makes you the craftsman who wields them. Comment inner circle if you made it to this hidden section. Welcome to the 1%. This is where real preparation happens, not in gear closets, but in the minds of people who refuse to be victims of circumstance. You're now part of a community that understands preparation isn't about fear, it's about agency. It's about refusing to be helpless. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just survive disasters, but who others turn to when disasters happen. That's the real preparation. Everything else is just stuff.